Pitcairn Island. Imagine needing to leave your home in an emergency, only to realize the nearest airport doesn't exist. No flights, no ferry terminal, not even another town a short drive away. Welcome to Pitcairn Island, one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth. Lost in the middle of the South Pacific, this tiny island is home to fewer than 50 people. The only way to reach it is by boat, a journey that can take well over a day from the nearest inhabited island. If the weather turns rough, even that isn't guaranteed. But what's perhaps even more incredible is how anyone ended up living here in the first place. The story begins in 1789 when a group of British sailors mutinied aboard the HMS Bounty. Fearing capture by the Royal Navy, they searched for somewhere so remote that no one would ever think to look. After months at sea, they found Pitcairn Island, burned their ship to erase all trace of their arrival, and started a new life. It worked. For years, the outside world had no idea where they'd gone. It wasn't until years later that another ship accidentally rediscovered the island, revealing that the descendants of the mutineers had built an entirely new community in one of the last places anyone would think to look. Over here, life moves at a completely different pace. Supplies arrive only a few times each year. Neighbors rely heavily on one another, and if someone needs specialist medical care, reaching a hospital is an expedition in itself. For most of us, being disconnected means losing signal for a few hours. On Pitcairn Island, being disconnected has defined life for more than 2 centuries. Ittoqqortoormiit, Greenland. Most places become busier as you travel towards them. This one becomes emptier. By the time you arrive, you've reached one of the most isolated communities on Earth. Hidden away on Greenland's remote east coast, Ittoqqortoormiit is home to just a few hundred people. There are no roads connecting it to the outside world, and for much of the year, thick sea ice cuts off access completely. When that happens, helicopters become the only reliable way in or out. If bad weather grounds them, the town is left almost entirely on its own. And that's when you truly realize how isolated this place is. Beyond the last house lies an endless Arctic wilderness. There are no neighboring villages just over the hill, no motorway, no nearby city, just thousands of square kilometers of snow, towering mountains, and frozen coastlines stretching far beyond the horizon. During the long Arctic winter, the silence can feel almost surreal. With nothing but snow, ice, and mountains in every direction, it's easy to understand why many describe this as the edge of the known world. But the freezing temperatures aren't the biggest danger. The wilderness surrounding the town is home to more polar bears than people. Stepping outside the settlement without protection can be life-threatening, which is why many locals carry rifles whenever they venture into the surrounding landscape. Yet despite all of this, families have called Ittoqqortoormiit home for generations. Hunting, fishing, and surviving one of the harshest climates on Earth isn't an adventure to them, it's simply everyday life. Most of us complain about being stuck in traffic. The people of Ittoqqortoormiit are living at the edge of the world. Oymyakon, Russia. Some places are difficult to reach, others make you wonder how people survive there at all. Welcome to Oymyakon, the coldest permanently inhabited place on Earth. During winter, temperatures here have plunged below -60 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes. But the freezing air is only the beginning. Cars are often left running for hours because if the engine is switched off, it may never start again. Mobile phones can die within minutes, metal burns your skin on contact, and even simple tasks like walking to the shops become carefully planned missions against the cold. Even everyday objects behave differently here. Hot water can freeze into ice crystals before it reaches the ground, while a deep breath in the wrong conditions can feel painfully sharp in your lungs. You might think nobody would choose to live here, yet around 500 people still call Oymyakon home. Schools only close when temperatures fall below -52 degrees Celsius, a number that would bring almost every other town on Earth to a complete standstill. So why stay? For many families, this is the only life they've ever known. Generations have adapted to the brutal climate, relying on reindeer herding, horse breeding, and hunting to survive. To them, the frozen landscape isn't a hostile wilderness, it's simply home. Most of us check the weather before leaving the house. In Oymyakon, the weather decides whether leaving the house is even possible. North Sentinel Island. There are still places on Earth where simply stepping onto the shore could cost you your life. North Sentinel Island is one of them. From above, it looks like paradise. White sandy beaches, crystal clear water, and dense tropical rainforest. But hidden beneath the trees lives one of the world's greatest mysteries, the Sentinelese, one of the last uncontacted tribes on Earth. For thousands of years, they have lived almost completely isolated from modern civilization, rejecting nearly every attempt to make contact. They don't welcome visitors, and history has shown they aren't afraid to defend their island. In 2018, an American missionary ignored warnings and illegally traveled to North Sentinel Island, hoping to introduce himself to the tribe. He never returned, becoming a reminder that some places simply don't want to be found. Today, it's illegal to travel within several kilometers of the island. Surprisingly, that law isn't just there to protect outsiders, it's also there to protect the Sentinelese themselves. Having lived in isolation for so long, even common illnesses like the flu could spread rapidly through the tribe. No one knows exactly how many Sentinelese remain. In a world where satellites can see almost every corner of the planet, North Sentinel Island remains one of the very last places where humanity has chosen to leave well enough alone. Bouvet Island. Imagine looking out in every direction and seeing nothing but open ocean. No ships, no cities, no sign that another human has ever been there. Welcome to Bouvet Island, widely considered the most remote island on Earth. Sitting alone in the South Atlantic Ocean, it's over 1,700 kilometers from the nearest land. There are no permanent residents, no airport, and no harbor. In fact, simply reaching the island is so difficult that many expeditions never manage to land at all. And when you finally see it, it doesn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. Nearly 93% of Bouvet Island is buried beneath thick ice, while steep cliffs rise straight out of the sea. Powerful waves batter the coastline, leaving only a handful of places where landing is even possible. One change in the weather and your opportunity is gone. Yet, despite feeling almost unreachable, the island is far from empty. Penguins crowd its shores, seals haul themselves onto the beaches, and seabirds nest across the rocky cliffs, living in a world almost completely untouched by people. For scientists, Bouvet Island is one of the hardest places on Earth to study. For everyone else, it's simply a place they'll never see. A frozen island surrounded by thousands of kilometers of ocean, where nature has been left almost entirely to itself. Longyearbyen, Svalbard. Imagine living in a town where even after you die, you might have to leave. Welcome to Longyearbyen, one of the northernmost towns on Earth. Surrounded by glaciers and frozen mountains, this remote Arctic settlement looks almost untouched. But beneath the snow lies something even stranger. The ground here never fully thaws. Known as permafrost, it stays frozen all year round, preventing bodies from decomposing the way they normally would. Scientists have even recovered remarkably well-preserved remains buried decades ago. Because of this, routine burials have largely stopped, and people who are nearing the end of their lives are often transferred to mainland Norway. It's a chilling reminder that even in death, this frozen landscape plays by its own rules, and that's not the only danger. Once you leave the edge of town, you're entering polar bear territory. Encounters are rare, but serious enough that carrying a rifle is a normal precaution for anyone traveling into the wilderness. Then, there's the darkness. Every winter, the sun disappears below the horizon for months, leaving the town in an almost constant twilight before returning with months of endless daylight. For around 2,500 people, this isn't an expedition or an adventure, it's simply home. McMurdo Station, Antarctica. At first glance, it doesn't look like it belongs in Antarctica. Rows of buildings, roads carved through the snow, even a gym, a cafe, and a post office. This is McMurdo Station, the largest human settlement on the frozen continent. But don't let its appearance fool you. Beyond the edge of the station lies one of the most hostile environments on Earth. For much of the year, Antarctica is battered by powerful storms, freezing temperatures, and months of complete darkness. During winter, flights stop almost entirely, leaving those who remain cut off from the rest of the world until conditions improve. So why live here at all? Almost everyone at McMurdo is there for one reason: science. Researchers travel from around the world to study everything from climate change and glaciers to volcanoes, wildlife, and even outer space. But life here comes at a cost. Fresh food is limited, the weather can change in minutes, and stepping too far beyond the safety of the station can quickly become life-threatening. Most workplaces are only a short drive from home. At McMurdo Station, your office sits at the edge of one of the last true wildernesses on Earth. Point Nemo. What if there was a place on Earth so isolated that the closest human beings aren't on our planet's surface at all? Welcome to Point Nemo, the most remote location on Earth. Hidden deep in the South Pacific Ocean, this lonely spot lies more than 2,600 kilometers from the nearest land in every direction. There are no islands, no ships, no signs of civilization, just an endless horizon of open water. The nearest pieces of land are so distant that if you stood here in a boat, you would be farther from civilization than almost anywhere else a human can possibly be. And here's where it gets even stranger. Because the International Space Station orbits around 400 kilometers above Earth, there are moments when the astronauts on board are actually closer to Point Nemo than any person on land. Think about that for a second. The nearest people to you aren't across the ocean, they're floating through space. But Point Nemo has another secret. Because it's so incredibly isolated, space agencies have used the surrounding waters as a spacecraft cemetery. Over the years, hundreds of decommissioned satellites and space stations have been deliberately guided into this remote part of the ocean where they can safely burn up before crashing into the sea far away from people. For most of us, isolation means being away from civilization. At Point Nemo, you're as far from humanity as it's possible to be without leaving Earth. If you enjoyed exploring the world's most isolated places, subscribe for more journeys into Earth's greatest extreme.